Hey, CST fans, Brian here. I'm here with Jose. We're down here in Nashville with Chris, who traveled all the way from Cincinnati. Chris, how do you feel about that game tonight?
I feel amazing. It was a great match. I love how Noonan mixed it up tonight, changed formation after half. It was great to see.
All right, we tracked down Josh. Actually, it wasn't hard. Josh sat right behind me at this match here in Nashville. Josh, what did you think of the match tonight?
That was electric. That was just a fun atmosphere, fun trip to get away to.
Hey, we got Jeff here, traveled all the way from Cincinnati. You do a lot of traveling, it sounds like, yeah?
Yeah, about half the games.
About half the games. Do you come to Nashville every year?
Yeah, I do.
Of all the Nashville matches you've been to here in Nashville, how does this rank among them?
Oh, this is one of the best. The stadium wasn't as full as usual, but, great support from FC, so.
Yeah.
Did you expect today's result?
I don't know if I expected a win, per se.
No, I was hoping for a draw. Coming on the road and getting 1 point would have been great.
Points, yes.
Okay.
But coming off of the tough comeback against Atlanta,
Yeah,
I was at least expecting points. I didn't know if we could pull out all three.
Did you expect this result?
Yes.
You did?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My man had hope. My man had hope.
You always have to have hope.
Okay, so first away match. All right, I got to say, the atmosphere is pretty incredible.
Yes.
We had a lot of Cincinnati fans sitting way up high, and you could hear them all through the stadium.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
I agree as well. We brought the energy with us.
Cincinnati's bringing home 3 points from Nashville.
3 points.
Chris, great to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
Win at home and get a point on the road, but this week FC Cincinnati actually pulled out 3 points against our not rivals down in Tennessee, Nashville SC. Welcome on in, everybody. I'm Jason Ashcraft. Welcome to episode 412 of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, where we're going to be talking all about that performance down in Nashville, soccer in the area, a little bit of news around the league, and of course Coach has a lot of tactics to talk about, all crammed into about an hour of a podcast for you. And joining me tonight is Coach Goff. Coach, how are you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Like many of the listeners, the people Brian interviewed down there in Nashville, I did not expect much out of that match. So to come out with 3 points and the poetic justice that we'll get to that happened in that match, I'm doing well.
Well, as he mentioned, Brian Biedenbach was down there in Nash Vegas. Brian, did you happen to attend a bachelorette party while you were in Nashville?
I did not. My 15-year-old son was with me, and we tried to stay as far out of town as possible. I will say there was a ton going on in Nashville this weekend, including like national cheer competitions. So like it was a little wild in the city of Nashville.
It sounds like my plan when I go to Nashville is not to go anywhere near Nashville. So, and much like the stadium is not really anywhere near Nashville either. So
no, it's not.
And then also joining us, Justin, how are you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing great, man. I went right in from the NCAA tournament right into the Nashville game. Was doing the live tweeting. So that was kind of crazy. It was complete switch of gears, but I'm really excited that FC Cincinnati was able to turn it around. I'm happy to be on the show tonight.
Yeah, anytime you can talk about a road win is always a good night. I am repping, I think, Coach, what did we say? This was a 2015 U.S. national team jersey. And the reason is because I'm going to brag. I'm going to take us on a little tangent here. If you notice in the intro, there my face shows up a few times. I'm looking a little puffier, a little bit more Rubenesque in those pictures. Since like October or November of this past year, I've lost like 60-ish pounds. So I am going into my drawer where I have all these old soccer jerseys and I am just putting them on as kind of like a daily affirmation of a better life, a better health. So that's why I'm repping this jersey tonight. Guys, again, win down in Nashville. always great to win on the road, and we are going to talk all about it. But before we do, we want to talk a little bit about our sponsor, Apollo Home. Folks, spring storms can be stressful time for homeowners. We had some last night here in the tri-state. If you need any help with your sump pumps or your yard drainage, give Apollo Home a call. They're offering a free consultation to all CST listeners. Give them a call, send them a text, or book online at apollohome.com. And we hope everybody watching and listening that their homes were spared from the severe storms we had last night. All right, let's talk about our win down in Nashville, 2-1. We're going to start, as always, with our best and worst. And Coach, let's start with you again.
Yeah, my best is just the flexibility this team has shown. It was mentioned again in those videos up front, but the ability to change formations, players playing different positions and doing pretty well at it. I just really like the ability that Pat Noonan and company have to actually tweak things this year and actually try different things. And my worst is going to be hamstrings. First of all, anyone who has them knows they suck. At least when you hit a certain age, they do. But especially for FC Cincinnati, we know we lost Yuya Kubo to a hamstring, didn't even play in Nashville. Both Obi and Miles left holding their hamstrings. We don't have any word on them. So I'd just say for all hamstrings, I hate them all right now.
Hamstrings are a bugaboo on this team right now. Justin, give us your best and worst.
My best has got to be the Evander free kick. That was an absolute rocket to the upper 90. I was like over the moon. How many times have I watched guys line up over the ball and just like dreamed of being able to, when you're having a match like that, to be able to score on an unconventional, non-run of the play style shot. It really opened up things for FC Cincinnati. My worst is going to go back to the live tweeting. I am probably the worst live tweeter in the CST lineup. So it is not for the weary. Keep it up with the pace, especially during that one sequence I'm sure we'll talk about.
Did you at least make sure that you were on the right Twitter account and not tweeting personal tweets from the official account?
It comes close sometimes. I'm not going to lie. There's times that I'm like sitting there, like switching back and forth, like during halftime and stuff like that. I'm like, oh no. But no, I at least had my wits about me for that.
I made that mistake a couple of times back in my athletics days. If you remember, what was it, TweetDeck? You got to keep those columns straight. So yeah.
Yep.
I made a few mistakes. My best and worst this week, I'm just going to come out and say Brad Smith. This guy has been a solid sub, and I have this theory about MLS is that every MLS team has to have one bald white guy on it. I think that's kind of written into the rules. And so we've got our quota of bald white dude. But in the past 2 games, this dude has come in and been pretty solid. And we were talking about it off air about how, he's coming in and he's doing a good job eating up minutes, and you don't really feel like he's a liability out there on the pitch. So hat is off to Brad Smith. Worst, I'm going to say the Nashville crowd. Guys, we have been told by Nashville fans that this is a huge rivalry, that this game means something to them. And while I don't know if I consider them a rival, we do have history with them going all the way back to USL days. And they can't be bothered to show up for their biggest rival. I mean, come on. Where is the heart? Where is the pride? Where is the desire to beat your hated rival? So that's my worst of the week.
Here.
Brian, you were there for the small crowd in Nashville. What is your best of the worst?
I was. Before I get to my best and worst, can I just say, so I was where I parked and where I had to walk into the stadium. I didn't know this, walked right past their march as they gathered in the park, and they were drumming and had the flags, and they were marching into the stadium. And my son and I were walking right as they the march and where we were coming from converged right at the stairs to walk into the stadium. And so we decided we either have to hustle and get in front of them, or we have to wait. And so we decided to run ahead, get in front, and we sort of these two Cincinnati fans kind of led the Nashville march into their stadium. Yeah, it wasn't a huge march, but they had 2 extra people in the front that weren't wearing yellow on that one. So, I will say this, the Nashville fans that were there in the stadium, it was not the nastiness that I anticipated. They were great while we were there with Cincinnati fans. But I'll put that aside. Let's get to my best and worst, because that was the question you originally asked me, Jason. I'm going to go with 2 best, actually. Being there was awesome. Some of the things that I saw were great. You mentioned some of the worst already. Best number 1 was Walker Zimmerman's handball that no one in the stadium saw, including Corey Baird, who headed the ball into his arm. He's going touch, touch, touch. And then there was a foul. He thought the ref was calling a handball on him. If you saw that, he ran up and was yelling at Drew Fischer. So my best is Drew Fischer's sharp eyes that saw something that nobody else saw. It was dead silent. I'll be honest, in the stadium, it was dead silent. I'm texting our group chat trying to figure out what the call was because nobody knew. It was incredible. So the fact that it was Walker Zimmerman that happened to was my best number 1. Best number 2 was 60 seconds of Roman Celentano. And unfortunately, I was in line for ice cream at that point. I got stuck at halftime in line. And so I'm watching it on the monitor. When he saves the penalty, he punches away the corner and then makes a triple save all in 60 seconds and ends up with the ball. And the fire that he was playing with all match was so fun to watch. So shout out to Roman Celentano, his best number 2 in that 60 seconds performance that he put on that changed the match.
Well, as we get into the match, looking at the FOTMob ratings, Roman Celentano best on the pitch with an 8.7 rating on FOTMob. 6 saves overall is what they credit him with, including that saved penalty. Guys, let's go through this game. Let's start off with the starting lineup. Of course, Celentano in the goal. Your back 3, Haglund, Robinson, and Flores going right to left. Then Yedlin over on the right, wing back, Wobodo, and Pavel Buka there in the defense, and Lucas Engel, over on the left back. Of course, we had Evander in the middle playing the number 10. And then up top, Sergio Santos and Luca Orishano. Guys, Kevin Denke, available to play, did not start. Instead, Sergio Santos gets the start above him. It seems like Pat Noonan has Pat's Law. If you don't get back in time at whatever time he deems correct, you don't start. So what were your all's initial takes with that starting lineup? Let's start with you, Justin.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of interesting to see Sergio Santos. I mean, apart from all the Dinke shenanigans and stuff like that, I thought, with the team like Nashville SC, they typically, want to bunker you in a little bit. And I was really shocked that we went with Sergio Santos because like the long ball threat and all that stuff is probably not going to be play. You're going to be trying to get some of those tiki-taka kind of passes and stuff like that to see if you can muster some space against Nashville. But I was really kind of shocked just in that. I wasn't so much in the Dinke world of shutting them down, but I get it. I mean, this is Pat's team. Pat obviously makes decisions like that, and if you're not completely bought in, or you're not here on time and stuff like that, I'm not saying Dinke isn't. I'm just saying that if you're not here on time, then every right in the world to rest him.
I'm going to jump in because, Kevin Denke played 2 full 90s on international duty, plus all of the travel. So I'm not so sure it's about him not training with the team or not showing up, or so to speak, or whatever, as it is just Pat actually resting his players, which I know is hard to believe since he typically just runs them into the ground until they're cramping and can't finish games out. But I love this, not least of which it gives Sergio Santos a chance. I bet Pat sat him down, or maybe Dom or Kenny or somebody else did and said, look, man, if you want to be challenging for a starting spot on this team, here are some things you have to do. Because what is the biggest complaint we get about Santos all the time? He doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't sprint often enough. Dude led the team with 6 tackles. How many times did he just like throw his body and pick up a foul because he's not letting Nashville get a clean counterattack or something? He didn't do a lot of good in terms of touches and the things you want strikers to do, but he worked really hard. And for that, I got to give him credit.
Yeah, I think it was a rest thing for Dinke, but you do make a good point, Coach, that, this is an opportunity for Santos to go out there and prove what he can do. Let's get into kind of a little bit of the game recap. It was pretty even going until about the 40th minute when yet another defensive lapse happens. There's Nick Haglund goes for a header. It doesn't quite connect all the way, and Nashville gets its first goal. Guys, I'll throw this just kind of out to the group. Why it seems like when we give up a goal, it's always kind of a fluky thing with the back line. So why does this keep happening?
I'll jump in, and tactically, Coach can address that more. What I see, I think from a overall perspective, is just a back line that hasn't gelled yet. They haven't played together long enough this season. We've had injuries. We've been talking about, Nick Haglund's return. He's still only a couple games into being back, and he's not playing a full 90 yet. He's played 2 45s for the senior team so far. We've got Hadeb that had some injuries. We've got Miles that goes out with injury. We've got Obi that goes out with potential hamstring injury, right? So we've got a lot of rotation on that back line, and I think it's a communication issue more than anything in my mind. Coach, you may have different thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Justin brought up the March Madness. It's like guarding a pick and roll. If you don't do it right, because all it takes is good communication, but if you don't do it right, somebody gets a dunk. And that's what's happening right now. You had Walker Zimmerman carry the ball forward. Pavel Buka left Tagseth to stop the ball. That's the right move. But at the same time, you need Flores to step on Tagseth. That didn't happen. That kind of seamless transition. So from there was a comedy of errors. You have the ball go out, and Lucas Engel has 2 men. He steps on Kasem. Kasem lets the ball run through to Bauer. Right now, Miles Robinson's leaving his man to go out to get Tagseth, who's getting played in because Buka had left him, and it just keeps going, right? And it ends up with all of FC Cincinnati's midfield, Buka and Obi and Lucas Engel watching the ball as it floats out to Bauer, and he just laces it into the top corner.
I will say this, though, for the lack of chemistry and organization that we're seeing, I love the fact that Flores is getting the time that he's getting in the center of that back line as a young player, a U22 player, that to have a coach like Coach Noonan say, we're depending on you right in the middle of this back line. He's going to make some mistakes. He's a young guy, but I think he's learning a lot as he goes. And he looks to be improving so far from what I can see. So I love the time that Flores is getting, even in the midst of, some potential injuries. So the young guy's getting some great time that's going to lead this team moving forward.
It seems like Flores is pretty comfortable out there. And sometimes when you bring in a younger player, we saw this with previous younger center backs, they sometimes take a little while to get used to things. It seems to me the Flores is pretty locked in just right out of the gate. He doesn't look like a liability out there at all. Yes, he'll make mistakes, but I'm a lot more comfortable with him starting than I have been with like some other younger center backs that we've had in the past. So we give up the goal, but not to worry. In the 43rd minute, Evander, we win a free kick from about 20-ish yards or so, and Evander laces one right into the goal. Guys, you had Orishano standing up there with the ball too. You got 2 guys that are known for being really good on free kicks. If you're that line of Nashville, what are you thinking? Who's going to take the kick? Where's this going to go? Justin, what were your thoughts when you saw that ball leave Evander's foot?
Oh, I mean, for me, there was no question that Evander was going to be taken in. I mean, he was an absolute poacher last year at that. So I can't say enough how much that gives me a relief. yes, we had some incredible free kicks from Lucho, Barrial, and Luca Orishano, but Evander is one of those night in, night out, always brings that kind of touch. And to be able to just send that rocket into the box, I think we saw a couple earlier that just nearly missed, had the right trajectory, had the goalkeeper beat, but just didn't make the framework. So for me, I was like, Evander is going to be the guy that's going to take this shot, and I'm glad he stepped up and did it.
I didn't think so. I thought it was going to be Orishano hitting it around the wall, the outside of the wall, where Willis was positioned was so far to the back post that I thought Orishano was going to put it low around the outside of the wall, like Barrial did a number of 2 years ago. I think he scored the one from a ridiculous angle.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that's where it was coming from. And to see Evander just step up, I thought maybe he'd step over the ball and then Orishano was going to go, but to have him hit it and go upper corner was pretty fantastic. Threw me off for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be one of those fakes where the guy runs over and someone else takes it. Evander now leading the team with 4 goals on the year, 1 assist, if I've got my stats correct. Coach, so far this season, there were a lot of questions about Evander coming in. So far, so good?
Yeah, I mean, like for a while, it looked like he didn't really know how to put his imprint on the game. Like the guy who shows up to the party and could be the life of the party, but he's like, I don't really want to take over yet. I'm just going to hang out, kind of sip on my gin and tonic. That one's for you, Jason. Or whatever. And now I think he's realized, oh yeah, I actually have to be the guy. Even if Kevin Denke's the guy scoring the goals, which he's not yet, but even if that happens, I have to be the one setting him up. And he's really starting to put himself into the game and put his fingerprints all over it. He had 10 shot creating actions, which is just like a really, really great number. And that's outside of the goal that he created. And he had another couple other opportunities that could have been goals if, Luca Orishano would have gotten a hold of a shot or something like that. So I like his progression. I want to see him doing it more. The one thing I really struggle with him is how lackadaisical he gets, especially defensively and especially when there's a turnover. Like, man, the one thing you can say a lot, what you want about Lucho, but man, if you tried to pass him the ball and he lost it, most of the time he was like clipping your ankles and then yelling at the ref or something, right? Like he shouldn't have gotten the foul called. Evander just kind of shrugs and there's a transitioning happening. I just want him to foul in transition or something more. But other than that, I like what I'm seeing.
Great. We mentioned Roman Celentano. Both he and Evander, if I remember correctly, team of the week for both guys. Team of match day, I should say. Team of the week is a different thing. But in the 49th minute, Hani Mukhtar goes up to the spot, and Roman Celentano comes up big, gets his paw up there, knocks away a PK. Guys, Roman is looking like he's pretty good at saving the old PKs. That was a little bit of a liability. And then not too long after that, we had the quintuple save that Roman put in there. Brian, you're a goalkeeping fan. You were there live. What was the reaction like from the FC Cincinnati fans at Roman's performance?
I would like to tell you what that was like. But as I mentioned, I was in the concourse standing in line for ice cream. I could hear them. They were right above me and the place lit up. I wasn't there to visually see it. I can tell you my reaction because I'm standing in line with a bunch of navy and yellow shirts waiting for ice cream with one other Cincinnati fan behind me. And I went, oh no, he hasn't even guessed the right way in 2 seasons. And when he saved that ball, I screamed, and everybody in line, literally besides me, my son, and the other Cincinnati fan behind me, just turned and gave me the nastiest looks that I've ever experienced. But it was pretty fantastic. And so to sit there and watch then the corner and then the triple save, like I was losing my mind standing in line. And I just wish I could have been with the rest of the Cincinnati supporters at that point.
Did the ice cream concession ladies give you mean mugs or anything like that?
I was so far back in line still. They weren't moving people very fast in that line, which is why I was still there.
I mean, my big thing is whenever I'm at TQL Stadium and then I go to the restroom, that's when FC Cincinnati scores.
Yeah.
So if we make another like conference final, I'm just going to camp out in the bathroom and listen to Tommy G. Justin, this is like the second game in a row or third game in a row we've seen Roman kind of have to stand on his head, though. Are we looking at maybe another goalkeeper of the year performance? I know it's really early, but kind of what is your assessment of Celentano so far this season?
Yeah, I think that's going to be hard to forecast. I mean, it is the East. The East has obviously tremendous talent that they've influxed over the last year. But Roman's been playing amazing. I think given the situations that he's been given here at FC Cincinnati, I mean, like hats off to the kid. Like, I mean, starting off in 2022 with that makeshift back line and then having that, supporter shield run where he won goalkeeper of the year was really the only time that we had any continuity in that back line. With Hagelin and Mascara and Miazga. But, last year was just kind of chaos. We brought in a guy in the middle of the transition. Then we brought Hadeb in. Awazium, Hadeb, they never really gelled in with the group. I think this year there was a little bit more continuity with the back line. I know we've had some injuries. I know there was that card issue with Flores. But I think that Roman himself has always been that kind of pedigree, right? Being a guy that could be a shot stopper. Yeah, we can poke fun at the PKs and we can poke fun at maybe his ball distribution from playing the ball in long, but he has always been one of those guys that has pretty good instincts. And then what we've probably harped on this 1,000 times here at CST is him being able to kind of stand in and be that good communicator for the rest of the team. We keep seeing those progressions. Yeah. And I'm really liking to see Roman develop as a leader that you would like to see in between the pines.
I'll jump in real quick and just hit on that because I do watch goalkeeper play and I do watch specifically when the camera's on the keeper. What is he doing? Who's he talking to? Where is he pointing? How is he communicating? And it seems that I mentioned earlier that he's playing with a little bit more fire. I saw him yelling and pointing and screaming at his defenders to get in position. He does that occasionally. I'm just seeing that more consistently in him. And I think, again, I saw Kevin Michael's comment, and I meant Justin, right? So, Justin, you hit on it, like his progression in the back there with his communication. I do think it's coming, and I think he's learning, like, Miazga's not coming back right away. I need to be a little bit more vocal because we're missing him. What I am interested to see is when Miazga and his vocal leadership comes back, what does Celentano do with that? Now that I got a vocal guy in front of me, can I still be the vocal guy behind him, telling him where he needs to be when he's out of position, or do I defer to him? So I'm interested to see how that goes when he comes back, because I do think Celentano is growing in that.
All right, we're going to have to try to speed things up a little bit. I like to get people talking, and we got to keep things a little tighter. But the PK that Roman did save was probably one of the technically a right call. But as the announcer mentioned, if they are going to call, so Kevin Denke, I think it was, gave up the penalty, wraps his arms around Zimmerman. Guys, that happens every match. And even the announcers pointed out, if you're going to call it in this match, you got to call it every single time, because how many times do we see scrapping in the box during a free kick of that level? Regardless, Roman comes up big. Kevin Denke, as we mentioned, comes in the second half. Not really much from Kevin in this match. It looked like Nashville was either all back or all forward, which was kind of hard to break down. We've talked a little bit about this. I'm going to chalk it up to Kevin not having a lot of time to get back in with the team. But Coach, what did you see out there from the offense there in the second half?
Yeah, so a really interesting thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of tactically and what happened in the second half is that switch from 3-4-2-1 to a 4-2-3-1. So basically from three center backs to 2 center backs. Okay. And then that shifts things around. So the way that affected things in the game was massive, and it had some big defensive implications. Mostly what it allowed is for Orishano and Santos, who were nominally playing as wingers, to track those outside backs so that Nashville couldn't have wide overloads. But offensively, what it created is those wide players pulled Nashville apart, right? They had to spread out. They had wide options to pass to, FC Cincinnati did, both with their outside backs, Engel and Yedlin, and forward in the half spaces and out wide in Orishano and Santos. So they had to keep those Nashville midfielders kind of spread, ready for those balls to go wide, which gave Evander and Buka more leeway in the middle, more room to operate. So, we didn't get to see a ton if that would really send things clicking because we had injuries first of all, Santos have to get subbed out, and there was nobody really to put on for him with Kubo out. So Brad Smith came on to play in that winger role, which he's an outside back by trade. And then you had Miles Robinson, Obi, you had these injuries and subs. So it was kind of a choppy game. And you mentioned Nashville kind of bunkering back a lot. But part of why they had to bunker back is because FC Cincinnati was finally able to get overloads by switching those formations. So I thought that was a really key aspect tactically that we saw with the change.
And we did just acquire $200,000 in GAM from RSL, I think it was. So maybe that $200,000 could be used to bring up a U22 left winger. I mean, maybe help us out. Coach, do you think that's a kind of a formation change that we could see to start out games? Or is that something that you think Pat Noonan is just kind of keep in his back pocket as something to play with as the game progresses?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about it in the Slack channel, but the team is set up pretty well to play in a 4-2-3-1, other than they don't really have natural wingers outside of Luca Orishano. But as long as they get creative, like Santos can play out there, Baird can play out there, and because Evander has such a great passing range, Lucho Acosta could dribble, but Evander is looking up and hitting clipped balls from right to left into the corner. That's what created the penalty kick, right? And he did that again at a different point where he picked out, it's like the 33rd minute, he picks out Engel running in, and then Engel tried to square it back, and that it got cut out, but it was a really great play. And his passing range allows you to play with a lot more space, really spread the team out. I tell kids that I coach, offensively, you want to be like as big as you can on the field, and then defensively you get tight. So the only player that I think is completely lost in that system, if they play 4-2-3-1, is Nick Hagland. I don't think he can play center back in a 2 center back set, and he can't really pass well enough to play a nominal right back that then stays home like they did with DeAndre Yedlin when they switched to that 4 back.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Kevin Denke, though, did get the game-winning goal there in stoppage time, that penalty kick the coach mentioned. I think it was a PK none of us saw coming. Even Corey Baird was kind of like, did that ball touch Zimmerman's arm? But in the end, Denke wins it for FC Cincinnati. Coach Rupesh did have a good question in the chat here. If you were to pick a U22 player, would you want it to be left wing back or a left back or a backup 8 for Pavel? I'm of the winger position, but if you were the GM, you're Chris Albright, where would you get a U22 player?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Both of those would be really key spots. I still think that Yuya Kubo can come in and do a job. It's a little bit like the Lucho Acosta problem. You're never going to have a backup for him. You're not going to have a backup for Pavel Buka as a U22. Players just aren't that clean on the ball unless you spend a lot of money on them and they have more experience. I'm not saying that Pavel Buka is the greatest player ever. He just has such a unique skill set. Kubo can come in and do a job, and they could just need to play differently. Anunga can come in and do a job, and they just need to play differently. Whereas having a winger out there that can run at players and also maybe come in as a wing back, as a left wing back when the team needs to score late, if they're playing a 3-5-2, I think could be really handy. So if I had to pick, I'm probably picking that winger wing back just because I think the success for a young player would be more immediate.
Almost makes me wish that we didn't loan out a winger to Lyon, I think it was, which we kind of had Barrial right now. All right. So that wraps it up for, unless Brian.
No, I was just going to jump in and ask a question, Coach, about Kevin Denke and his play. Like, we've talked a little bit about his style, and in this. And so I guess my question, before I explain too much, is tactically, it's more of a tactical thing that the way he is moving and coming back to get the ball, or is it a player preference that, and where this is coming from is a little bit of, again, a few weeks ago, I was watching Brandon Vasquez play in Austin, and I just thought he is constantly moving off the ball, and he's looking to draw defenders away and then make the cuts that no one's expecting him to make. And Denke seems to be, he's definitely a different player. He's stronger with his feet, and he looks to be tracking closer to the ball to receive the ball more. Is that a tactical decision that Noonan is making, or is that player preference in this formation, or does formation matter in the way Kevin Denke is playing?
Yeah, it's impossible to know for sure without being on the training pitch, right? But when I watch, I'm seeing those same things. There was a play very definitively where I think Santos had the ball out wide and Denke just floated to the back post and he crossed it. Santos did, and it just got cut out easily. And I thought if that was Brandon Vasquez, he would have been cutting in front of that center back, and that would have been a tap in, right? And I think Denke doesn't make those kind of runs. Now, also, let's not get confused here. We talk about elite skill sets. Brandon Vasquez's movement in and around the box is elite. He might not be elite at many other things, but his movement is kind of like how Wondolowski had that, right? He wasn't elite at much, but his movement in the box, man, he could do it. Chicharito's another one. So Denke might not have that, and he is way better at with his feet. So I think it's two things. One, the player preference and not being as good at knowing exactly when to make those runs. But two, the timing of those runs has to be perfect for them to work. And if you watch Denke, it's not like he never makes a near post run. He might make one and the ball doesn't come, and then he doesn't make one and it does. So we talk about gelling, and it seems like platitudes, it seems like excuses, but it really is knowing the look for a player when they're going to cross it compared to when they're going to shape up and cut it in and dribble more. Just the subtle differences. You start to read your teammates and you know when to make those cuts, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think it comes down to experience playing with each other, and that these guys haven't had a lot of experience learning each other's habits, learning where people are going to go. And even with any sport where you've got to distribute a ball, the best teams have that kind of that rapport between the guy distributing the ball and the guy receiving the ball, whether it's Joe Burrow to Jamar, or it's John Stockton to Karl Malone. It's the guys that, like, you know where the dude's going to be. And I think that's going to come between Evander and Kevin Denke. At least I hope so. So, well, guys, we've had a lot going on around MLS, but before we get into that and put a nice little bow on this Nashville game, we want to give a big shout out to our friends at Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they've helped some of our local MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. The way my knee is feeling today, I might actually be visiting that website after we get off of the Cincinnati Soccer Talk stream. Guys, a big week around MLS. The first thing I want to just kind of throw out there for comments is something I didn't think was going to happen this year, especially this early in the year. Peter Vermees, a guy who has been with Sporting Kansas City for nearly 2 decades, someone whose name got tossed about when FC Cincinnati was looking for coaches, is out. It was announced today that Peter Vermees is out at Sporting KC. Justin, when you saw this news, what were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts was this is like 2 years too late. Peter Vermees is, I think they had like a cup run somewhere along the way, but no, they had that series against St. Louis where they snuck in as like the 9 seed or whatever.
And they've had a lot of success in the Open Cup in recent years too.
Yeah, good on them. No, Vermees it's just cooked at this point. It's become an untenable situation in Sporting Kansas City. You can't have a guy that's, while he's been there and he's definitely earned the respect and definitely should have a voice in how things are the day-to-day operations go. Vermees is a little bit too much influence in it, and it has always seemed to backfire. I'm not saying Sporting Kansas City is well ran, but I really don't understand the tactics. Vermees is just like refuses to change any of the tactics. He makes simple shifts and stuff like that, but the talent hasn't been exactly top notch at Sporting Kansas City, so I'll give him that. But I just like the fan base had moved on 2 years ago, so I was really surprised that it took this long to get here. But after you start off 0-5, that'll get you out the door.
I will never forget my very first year living in Salt Lake City was last year that RSL made the MLS Cup final. And of course that was against Sporting KC when they were in the Eastern Conference back then. And I was not a fan of Peter Vermees then. He seems like a nice enough dude. I do wish him well. Always hate to see someone lose their job, but it seems like the fans were kind of ready for this to happen there in KC, and they've got a lot of competition coming from the KC Current too. So they need to get a winning team there at Sporting.
Yeah, Rupesh just commented the supporter group letter to the ownership that came out just before the firing. They were expressing their angst and their frustration with the ownership and calling for his head at that point.
We've been there. We've all been there. Unfortunately, we know all too well what that's like here.
Coach that doesn't change tactics, that keeps the same players on the pitch and never subs it. We've been there. We've been there.
Yeah.
I know it's
you guys know any other club that releases those kind of statements? I haven't heard of any supporter groups that release a lot of ton of. At least Sporting Kansas City probably won't be blocking a whole bunch of FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
release. So,
also it is early in the season, but fellas, we've got a little shakeup here in the Eastern Conference. Chicago and Philly looking solid this year, and I think. For me, I didn't do, I don't think, a prediction for the entire MLS, but I didn't think Philadelphia was going to be this hot coming out of the gate, nor did I think Chicago was going to be this solid. Coach, what have you seen from these teams?
For Philadelphia, at least, we've seen time and time again that teams that want to play like their hair is on fire, just like 100 miles an hour all the time, do really well in the front part of the season where other teams have not really gelled yet. They're not knocking the ball around as cleanly. The weather is more favorable. And then as it heats up and you get into summer and teams start to click, that wears down. The same thing happened with St. Louis. And I forget who coached St. Louis when they had an amazing start to a season and then just like blew it in the playoffs. And I think they lost to somebody who maybe doesn't even have a job anymore. If you're not getting that reference, it's Bradley Carnell, who now coaches Philadelphia, who lost to Peter Vermees, who doesn't have a job anymore, right? So I think Philadelphia is going to be a lot better than I thought, just because I didn't think that they would be just Red Bulls 2.0 or St. Louis 3.0 or whatever they are. But I don't think that they're going to have staying power. As for Chicago, they brought in a lot of talent. And it was always going to take time for those pieces to gel. So I think they'll hit some peaks and valleys. So I don't know what being legit means, but I would expect them to be in the playoffs. And I would expect them to be one of those teams that you hear so often about that, like, wow, nobody wants to see them in the playoffs. But I don't think they're going to be, top 4 in the East or really even hanging right around that line. But who knows?
Brian, you were a big Chicago believer at the beginning of the season.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, take that for what it's worth. Big Chicago believer. I did say at the episode 400, the live Norden Scarf release party, when asked the question, who would be Cincinnati's biggest competition this year, I did say, besides Columbus and Miami, I thought Chicago was going to creep up to the top. And I did get a lot of funny looks, like I did in Nashville when I screamed when Roman saved the penalty. People looked at me funny, those that could hear us that day. But I think, as Coach said, they spent a lot of money to bring in some talent. And I think that they're looking to make some changes, and they're looking to put a quality product on the field that maybe we haven't seen in the last couple of years. And it looks like it's starting to come together. So it's yet to be seen if they're going to be our biggest competition, but I think they're proving that they could be moving forward.
Philadelphia right now second in the Eastern Conference with 12 points. Of course, it's very early. Chicago with 11, and then you got this big mess of folks from fifth all the way down to eighth, where FC Cincinnati find themselves lumped in with Charlotte, Nashville, Orlando. Guys, if you weren't watching Apple TV this weekend, you missed out on a lot of goals. And I think it was Justin that added this to our rundown. An absolute barn burner down in Atlanta, 4-3, coming back from 2-0 down to beat NYCFC. Justin, I watched the LAFC San Diego game. Those scumbags out in San Diego wound up beating the snot out of LAFC. A lot of goals flying around MLS this weekend.
Yeah, it was insane. That Atlanta match. It's just like I felt like I was jumping in a time machine to those like massively late subs FC Cincinnati used to deploy, and that's what ended up costing NYCFC. They had the I think it was a 2-goal advantage, and it got to I believe it was like the 70th minute of the match, and just all heck broke out. At the 60th minute of the match, it like Atlanta just started scoring goal after goal after goal after goal. And NYCFC, I mean, here's the insult to injury: 80th minute sub, 84th minute sub. That's your first sub of the match, the 80th minute, after you've already conceded 3 goals in the comeback run. So it just absolute calamity. Of course, Atlanta, they scored, or they ended up getting a goal of some form against us late in that match up in TQL, but Atlanta is just starting to kind of get the ball rolling down there. I think they're starting to really take off. I think the preseason expectations are pretty high, and like we said about our club, it takes time for teams to gel, but Atlanta could be one of those teams that's really going to scare people when it goes.
And yes, Rupesh, 3-2 is beating the snot out of a team when you score 3 like unanswered goals within like 15 minutes of each other. Anyway, if you haven't really checked out the soccer in our area section that Justin does such a good job on working on, really go to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, check that out. Justin does a great job on this. We don't cover the area soccer, I think, as much as we should. And as we move into the college soccer season, I think we're going to try to get some guests on from the local colleges as much as we can. But just a little rundown here of what's going on in our area. And Justin, at any moment, please interrupt me, even though I can't see you because I've got the rundown pulled up. The Cincinnati Sirens, they are in the MASLW. That's an indoor women's soccer league. Their season came to an end as they were eliminated in the playoffs. The Sirens finished the regular season 8-2. They were the Great Lakes South divisional champions. So congratulations on a good season to the Sirens.
That's the Sirens. They used to be the Saints, right, Coach?
Yeah, so the Lady Saints, they played both in an indoor league and an outdoor league for a while. So then when that outdoor league kind of folded, I think the whole league folded, they moved over. But if you haven't checked out a Sirens game, I will say I coached the Lady Saints when they were an outdoor squad for a while. The ladies who play for those teams, it's like a semi-professional league. They're amateur players, but they are all basically former Division I, a lot of them current Division I players at times. They've had players on their roster who, had a cup of coffee in NWSL, were on the roster for the Chicago Red Stars when they were the Red Stars, and made a game day squad, but never saw the field, things like that. So it's good high level soccer. And these women put the time in and the training in to keep themselves in shape and play really good soccer together. And they are competitive. They're a group of ladies that want to win at all costs. So when I coached them, I could tell some stories from training, let's say, about how bad they wanted to win. But I would encourage you to get out and check out an indoor game in that the Sirens if you have a chance. It's great stuff.
And Rupesh asked a question. So the Sirens play their indoor games up in Fairfield, Ohio, at Game Time Center. I always get that jumbled up. But their outdoor games, I have to check on that. That's kind of they always like end of season negotiations. So check FC Cincinnati or Cincinnati Soccer Talks social media, and I'll definitely make sure that people are abreast to the location that they end up deciding on.
Well, if you're looking for another team to follow, we've got the Bootleggers AC. They announced that they're joining the Ohio Valley Premier League this coming season, and they are going to have their very first friendly at Midway University down in Kentucky, versus Midway University, this Friday at 7 p.m. at Scott High School in Covington. If you're looking for something to do on Friday, check out the Bootleggers. This one's a little close to my heart because I used to be an SID at Xavier, and my one of my teams was the women's soccer team. The Crosstown Derby will be making an appearance in the Spring Cup. Xavier will be hosting UC Friday at 8 p.m. at Corcoran Field, right there off Victory Parkway. A non-PK win by either team will be enough to lift the cup. FCC 2, the Young Garys fell to Chicago Fire 2 by a score of 1-2. The two teams have opened their year with 3 straight league losses and an elimination from the U.S. Open Cup. Really hoping that FCC 2 gets it turned around because we're going to rely on them to hopefully give us some first team players that we can count on here in the near future. And of course, Lexington SC, Justin Blair's favorite team, are heading up to face Crew 2 in the second round of the U.S. Open Cup. Big ups to Lexington SC. I hope they go up there and beat those scumbags in Columbus. If you didn't see the drama, I'm going to bring this up. I don't care. This is so stupid. If you didn't see the drama online, this is why I love soccer Twitter. So the Nordeca, who release a press release every time one of them uses the bathroom properly, put out a press release. And this is a good thing. I'm not knocking them for this. They were going to buy 96 tickets for the Crew 2 for this game. That's great. Good for you. The Pride, one of our supporters groups, made a joke about it because if you know anything about the Nordeca, they do love their press releases. And so the Nordeca, with one of the most sensitive little snowflake responses, was trying to make FCC, and remember when we used to get bashed as attendance FC by the Crew fans, made some like snide remark about how our attendance is down 9% year over year, even though we've only played like 4 games. And that we're like currently near the bottom of the table, even though we've only played like 4 games. Long story short, they wound up blocking the Pride, and a bunch of FC Cincinnati supporters, just absolute shambolic stuff from the Nordeca, exactly what you would expect from the divorced dad energy that permeates the entire Columbus fan base. Precourt did nothing wrong. Enjoy your game in Cleveland. Be ready to move up there. Got that out of my system.
I was so enthralled by that rant that I forgot to put Jason full screen because that would have been a great clip to pull.
If you want more of my rants, go to my YouTube channel, Jason Base 00, and there's going to be more of that. Actually, better done videos. But
Jason, we'll get you one of these Lexington SC hats. You can take it up there to Columbus and support on the team. No, I think it's really cool. If you guys do love the tournament, I do. I think a lot of people do enjoy what the significance of that tournament is. I think it's a great opportunity to go out to one of their matches. You know, league matches sometimes kind of hit or miss or whatever, but especially for some of these lower level teams within our region, it's really a good chance to get up to an Indy 11 game. It's really a good chance to go out and check out, here before long, we'll have Fort Wayne up in your neck of the woods, Brian. Yeah. So it's just a really unique, each game that you go to, each stadium, I know it's Crew 2, probably not going to be a big fan of going to historic Crew Stadium, but it brings its own kind of flavor, right? So somebody that's never been to one of those stadiums gets a feel for what a match day looks like, especially with a cup on the line.
And that's the thing that I miss about the Open Cup is we don't get to see our old friends and rivals anymore. And I really wish MLS would participate, regardless of all the problems the Open Cup has. So that about wraps it up for soccer on our area. Folks, if you want to support Cincinnati Soccer Talk in making all of this content and managing our website and all of that stuff, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. I will get it out at some point. And from there, you'll be able to sign up for our Patreon page and make a one-time donation. A paid Patreon subscription enters you into the Growler Cup competition, as well as other bonus content from CST. And a big shout out to our new patron, Trina, who is supporting Cincinnati Soccer Talk. So big ups to her. If you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on all of our socials. Cincinnati Soccer Talk, just search it. We're everywhere. And there's all kinds of great content that is being put out. And a lot of folks work really hard at Cincinnati Soccer Talk, a lot harder than I do, and they deserve all sorts of props. Guys, we got a game coming up this weekend. New England coming into town. They got their first win of the season over New York Red Bulls in their big rivalry game. The Revs have only scored 3 goals all season. Guys, what are we thinking heading into this weekend? Just real quick, rapid fire, quick thoughts, and maybe a score prediction.
Man, it always bothers me that it seems like FC Cincinnati catches teams at the wrong time. We got Philly early in the season. I already talked about that. We get teams like when they just fire a coach and they have that new coach bounce. And now we got the Revs right after Carlos Heel got on the score sheet and finally scored some goals. This should be a win when you look at it on paper, but then you start to realize, oh, wait, didn't Obi leave the game injured? Didn't Miles leave the game injured? Isn't Teenage still in some far off land getting a green card? And you start to think what this lineup could look like, and it makes me nervous. Now, is that just a Cincinnati fan in me coming out like, well, of course it's Cincinnati, or is that legit? I can't really tell you. I will say that Pat Noonan and his coaching staff have their work cut out for them to keep the guys tuned in on shutting down Heel. And if you can shut down Heel, you should be able to keep the Revs off the board. And from there, I mean, just with Evander or Shano, just those two alone, you should have enough to score a goal at home. So I would hope that FC Cincinnati would be able to get out of here with a win. And I think if they score 1, they're going to score 2. So I'm going 2-0 to the good guys.
Brian, are you going to be making the trip down to TQL Stadium this weekend?
Man, I wish I could. I might think about it, but it's actually tax day for my wife and I, so we got to get our taxes done that day. She would not be happy with me.
Just skip it.
Yeah, I think we talk about trap games. Not that Cincinnati's been on a tear here, and this could be a trap game, but you mentioned New England's only maybe scored 3 goals all season, and I look at who they've played, right? And they've played 3 of the top 6 teams in the East. 2 of them are 2 of the stingiest defenses in the league in Nashville and Columbus. Nashville's only given up 4 goals, and Nashville's given up 5, 3 prior to our 2 against them this last weekend. So they've played some really tough teams, some really tough defenses. So it'll be interesting to see how our back line now stacks up against their offensive lack of output. And see how that lines up. I would like to see, Cincinnati come out with a lot of offensive. Let's just go at them hard. I think that's how you counter a back line with some hamstring injuries. Is you just push hard and get the guys gelling and score some goals here at TQL. I think Cincinnati comes out. I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory, just because that's the safe call there.
Justin, what are you thinking for Saturday?
I think we're going to win 3-0. Let's just do it. Let's just kick the door down. I don't know. I agree with Coach. The defensive struggles are one thing, but I think that FC Cincinnati can come at them. So I want this to be a game where, to have a championship run, you got to be able to do things right offensively and defensively, and sometimes you got to pick up the slack for the other, and I really want to see the attack pick up the slack for the defense. Now, does that mean that we're going to get a clean sheet? No, probably not, but I'm hopeful.
I'm going to say, because we have our offensive trio actually has a full week of training with each other. I'm going to say the offense comes out like a beast, but the defense still struggles. We're going to have a 3-2 win against the Revs on Saturday at TQL Stadium. Storms are in the forecast, so be sure to wear something that is waterproof. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. Guys, it's been a pleasure. We want to thank all of our patrons once again. We want to thank all of you for sticking with us for the past hour. We got it. I didn't think we'd do it. We got it in an hour. So now that brings us to our final thoughts. Justin, give it to us.
Yeah, I see your kit, the U.S. Men's National Team kit, and there was a lot to be bummed about for that Nations League performance. I think Grayson Galbraith has got a article series coming up on our website that kind of discuss, how are we in this kind of relentless purgatory, and how USMT could climb out ahead of the upcoming World Cup. So definitely check out that series. I was kind of blown away. I did a little sneak peek into the articles, and I think you guys are really going to like it. Grayson always does a fantastic job for CST, so shout out to Grayson.
Coach.
Yeah, thanks. I was happy to be on, after a win, have some good things to talk about. And speaking of those good things, I want to spend my final thoughts giving a little bit of love to the Cincinnati kid, Nick Hagland, because something that we have missed when he is not out there is that guy who just is all heart, just goes after everything with all that he has. Now, does that mean sometimes all that he has is winning a header that is 6 inches off the ground, like he did? Yes, that's what that means. The question from Kevin Michael that was up on the screen for a bit was essentially, should he have gone after that with his foot? I watched it back a bunch of times. I think he made a split-second decision, and I think if he reaches with his foot, there's a chance that he gives away a penalty. Now, I'm not saying, I think probably the foot is still the better option because he threw his face at the ground, right? But when you have a guy like that, you ask him to do what he's good at. What did he do? What he's good at? He went and won the ball. He got the first touch. That's the most important thing. If those other guys behind him, or I guess in front of him at that point, watch that back. You see Obi, you see Buka, you see Angle all jogging back into the box, watching him win that header. If any of them bother to pick up Bauer, then that's not a goal because Nick Hagland prevented the goal by winning that header. So even if he stays on his feet, I'm not sure that it does any good. I think Nick Hagland has a lot of growth still to get back to where he was. His form is still not great, but I like seeing him on that pitch. I think that he is a valuable asset in the locker room, and I think his best role for this team is going to be late game to win, when a team is throwing like a body like Walker Zimmerman to be a forward when they're trying to win a goal back, and he comes in to help see it out. So I don't want to see him starting, but you got to give him some love because he's the kind of player everybody likes to root for.
Everybody, when he came on the other day, like last week or the week before at TQL Stadium, and the eruption from the crowd just warmed my heart. Everybody loves Nick Hagland. Brian, give us your final thoughts.
Yeah, so this was my first away match that I've been to. And so my first opportunity to see how the Cincinnati fan base travels. And I was impressed, right? Just from the get-go. There were a lot of fans, but it looked like an empty section because they were all roped off in the very top corner. But they were loud. I'll tell you that they could be heard. I walked to the other side of the stadium at one point, and you could hear them on the other side. And so loved being there, being a part of it. Shout out to all the Cincinnati fans that traveled. I got to meet some of our CST listeners. Eric was one that had some good conversation with. So Eric, if you're listening, shout out to you, and to Jeff and Josh and Chris who participated in some of those interviews. It was just a fun environment to be there. And so my son, again, was with me. He's 15 years old, and he's been to home games. This is his first away match that he's been to. And he goes, Dad, I didn't expect this. Like, there's so many people here from Cincinnati, and they're so loud. And I think that's just the passionate fans that travel with this team and follow this team is just pretty fantastic to be a part of. Nashville was ready. They had about 8 security guards. I don't know what they were anticipating at that match, but it was a fantastic crowd by Cincinnati. So shout out to all the supporters groups and members of the Cincinnati fan base that went to travel to Nashville.
All right. And that about wraps it up. My final thought, guys, is I had a blast talking about a win. This season hasn't really started off great, but it hasn't started off bad. It started off right there in the middle. But now that we're out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, now that we've got a long stretch before any other kind of international breaks or Leagues Cup or any other of that nonsense, we've got a long stretch of actual MLS games. The season starts this week, in my opinion. This is when the games really start to matter. And I hope everybody has a great time out at TQL Stadium this weekend rooting on FC Cincinnati to win. So for Justin, Brian, and Coach, I'm Jason Ashcraft. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We'll see you next week here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk.